Good day, everyone. Welcome to another video tutorial. Today, we're going to explore the midpoint formula. In this lesson, we shall derive the midpoint formula and apply the midpoint formula to prove some geometric properties. The point halfway between the endpoints of a line segment is called a midpoint. A midpoint is a midpoint divides a line segment into two equal parts. So as you can see in the illustration, the midpoint is between this endpoint and this endpoint, and it is located at exactly half or halfway between the two endpoints. In coordinate geometry, there is more than one way to determine the midpoint of a line segment. The first method is by counting the midpoint by itself. You may find the midpoint by simply dividing the line of the segment by 2 and counting the value from either of the endpoints. So let's consider the ABL segment AV and C AB and CD, and let's find the midpoint of the segment. As illustrated, the length of the line segment AB is 8 units. We can know that by counting from A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now if we divide 8 into 2, we could get the 4 units as its midpoint. So let's count from one endpoint for 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the other endpoint 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this coordinate will be the midpoint of this line, and that is 1, comma, negative 4. Let's try the same method on segment CD. In segment CD, the measurement of this segment is 1, 2, 3 units. Now to determine the midpoint of this, let's divide 3 into 2. That is 1.5. So now let's count 1.5, 1.5 on from each endpoint. So 1 and 1 half, 1 and 1 half. So this will be the midpoint of this segment. That is 2, comma, 1.5. This method is somehow used in finding the midpoint of a vertical and horizontal line on a Cartesian plane. So let's now explore the method number 2. If the line segments are diagonal, more true must be paid to the solution. When you are finding the coordinate midpoints of the segment, you are actually finding the average mean of the x coordinate and the average mean of the y coordinate. So which is this one? If the coordinate of A is negative 10, imagining this is a numbered line, so in order to find the midpoint of A and B, we just add the coordinates of A and B and divide it into 2. So that's how we get the average. Later, I will explain to you on how to get the midpoint formula using this average mean as our concept. But for now, let's practice the vertical and the horizontal line and finding its midpoint. Let's consider segment AB. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so that's 1, 2, 3. So the midpoint for this one is 4, comma 5. So that's the midpoint there. Now CD is 1, 2, 3, 4. Divided by 2 is 2. So 1, 2. So that is 2, 0. On the other hand, let's have the EF, segment EF. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 units divided by 2. That is 2 as well. So let's count 2, 1, 2. So this is the midpoint. This is negative 1, negative 4. And for lastly, we have G and H, GH. So let's count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So let's count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will be the midpoint. So what that is negative 2, 2. And that's how you use method number 1 to find the midpoint. Now let's go back to method number 2 and let's find for the formula for this. It says that we need to get the average of the coordinates of 2 points. Imagine that point A has a coordinate of x sub 1 and y sub 1, and B has the coordinate of x sub 2, y sub 2. To further illustrate how to get the formula for this, let's try to create a horizontal line and a vertical line from each point up to the point that where they meet. And using these two formulas, we can say that the coordinate for this one is x sub 2 because they should have the same coordinates, and y sub 1 because they should have the same coordinates because they lie in that coordinates in the Cartesian plane. Now, let's first see the distance between the midpoint between B and this new point. Now, to get the midpoint of this, all we need to do is to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, we use method number 1. So we have same value of x because they lie on the same x coordinates. Now, to get the average of this one, we need to find the measurement of this and the measurement of this and divide it into 2. On the other hand, what is the distance? Let's find the midpoint between A and this new point here. And that gives us x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2 and comma y. This should be y sub 1. I'm sorry. Now, if we going to have these 2 points meet, they'll be having the coordinates of x coordinates same with this and y coordinates same with this. That's why we have the midpoint formula to be like this. So to get the midpoint of x, we need to use this formula. To get the midpoint of y, we need to use this formula. So the midpoint coordinates is equivalent to x plus 1, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. So this will be the midpoint formula. This is applicable in all line segment, even if it is vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. Okay, now let's explore and let's try to use that formula into answering this question. What is the midpoint between these 2 points? The first thing that we need to do is to assign points on it. This will be my point 1 and point 2. Then let's use the midpoint formula. Let's substitute the given. Negative 1, 3 for x, 2 and negative 6 for y. We simplify it further. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. Both divided into 2. So the midpoint is 1 comma negative 2. On problem number 2, the line segment has a midpoint of 7 comma 3 and an endpoint of this one. So what is the coordinate of the other endpoint? So as you can see, if we're going to illustrate, this is the line segment, then we know that the midpoint is 7 comma 3. One endpoint is negative 5, 11. So we are asked to find this another endpoint. So how do we do that? Again, we just assume that point number 2 doesn't exist. And we will use this as our point 1 and this will be our midpoint. That's why I use the value of x and y. Now to answer this one, we need to substitute the values that we have. Now, since this is equal to the x coordinate and should be equal to 7, and this one should be equal to this one, we need to separate this one, these two. Let's start first with x. So 7 should equal to negative 5 plus x up to over 2. So to compute for this, let's multiply 2 on both sides. And let's plus 5 on both sides. And that will give us this one. So our x sub 2 is 19. For our y sub 2 point coordinates, we have this one. Multiply both sides by 2. And that gives us this one. So this one will be transposed on the other side. So y sub 2 is equal to 17. So the other endpoint is 19 comma 17. Now next problem. The center of the circle has the coordinate of 1 comma 1 and an endpoint of diameter is at 1, comma negative 2. Find the coordinates of the other endpoint. So this is the same problem as the previous problem. So the center is 1, comma 1, and one endpoint is 1, sorry, 1, comma negative 2. We need to find another endpoint. So let's just use the midpoint formula to answer this. Same process. Let's assign another endpoint as a variable and the first endpoint to be 1 comma negative 2. So the midpoint of the this 2 point is 1 comma 1. So let's just assign the variable x and y to them. So again, let's substitute the values that we have. And now let's separate this one. This one will go with this one, and this one will go with this one. So 1 is equal to 1 over 1 plus x sub 2 over 2. Let's multiply both sides by 2. That will give us 2 is equal to 1 plus x sub 2. Let's subtract 1 on both sides to cancel this out. So x sub 2 is equal to 1. So that's the value of our x for the other endpoint. On the other hand, let's do this one. Let's multiply 2 on both sides. We have 2 is equal to negative 2 plus y sub 1. Now, let's add 2 on both sides to single out y sub 2. So y sub 2 now is equal to 4. So the other endpoint is 1 comma 4. Another problem. Given the vertices of a triangle, negative 2, comma negative 3, 2, comma 3, and 6, comma negative 1. Find the coordinate midpoints of each side. Okay, so let's use this side first. Negative 2 and 3. And let's find the midpoint of this. Using the midpoint formula and substituting all the values, we'll be having the midpoint of 0, comma 0. So this will be the midpoint of this one. Now for this one, these 2 points, this segment, let's use the midpoint formula. So x plus x sub 1 plus x sub 2, that is 2 plus 6, and 3 plus negative 1. So 2 plus 6 is 8. 3 plus negative 1 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this will be 4, comma 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, comma 1. So this will be the midpoint. And for the last side, we have 6, comma 1 and negative 2, negative 3. Again, negative 6 plus negative 2. Then this one is negative 1 plus negative 3. We have 4 over 2 and negative 4 over 2. So the midpoint is 2 comma negative 2. So 2 comma negative 2. So this will be the midpoint. Okay, that's it. That is the midpoint formula. I hope that you learned something from this, and I hope that you stay tuned for the next video wherein we're going to answer problems about midpoint formula. So bye for now.